Hello and welcome to the Daily Fantasy 5 for the Saturday, July 20th. This is episode 150. I'm your host, Scott Grierson, bringing you the 5 things you need to know today in the world of fantasy sports. Today, we're going to be talking about the big news about Tyreek Hill not being suspended for this football season and kind of the uproar it's put all my rankings into. We also have two baseball stories that we're going to cover before we get to my two-round half-point PPR mock draft. So we'll get to all that after a word from our sponsor, www.mathradio.com, where you can pick up an online math course for as little as $9.99 to help your child ages 7 through 17 get better grades in school, score higher on exams, and even get into college. For less than $10, you can have this math course that'll last you a lifetime, and it will make you the hero of your household by helping your child get better grades and have less stress with homework. Go to www.mathradio.com. All right, people. So the big news, big news out of the NFL is that Tyreek Hill will not be suspended. So this is huge news. Kansas City fans are rejoicing. Fantasy dynasty players who had Hill on their team are also very pleased. But for analysts who are trying to look at this, it kind of puts us in a bind. We're kind of set. I'm not really a fantasy analyst. I'm just kind of a overseer here. But I did not have Tyreek Hill in my first 5 rounds, and now he's a first-round type of receiver. So right now I have him at wide receiver 5. I have him behind my two guys, Adams and Hopkins. All right, I think there's a decent argument to be made there. But I also have him behind Julio Jones and Juju Smith-Schuster. So is this a mistake? Should he be ranked number 3 at least? I don't know. Right now, I'm just kind of set in my ways. I have certainly talked myself into Julio Jones and Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Schuster is going to lead the league in targets. I think Jones might actually see some touchdown upside this year in that Falcons offense with an improved offensive line. Gives Matt Ryan a little bit more time to throw the ball. I really like these two guys. So I'm not sure if I'm being just stuck in my ways here. Should I move Hill in front of these guys? For right now, I've got him going 10th overall as my wide receiver number 5. Now, can he move up? Will he move up? It's certainly possible. We still have a ways to go. Obviously, there's always injuries, so maybe one of the top guys gets hurt and Hill moves up anyway. But for right now, I have Hill 10th overall, number 5 on my wide receiver depth chart. All right, I've got him slotted in there between Juju and Antonio Brown. All right, I think that's a good spot for Hill this year. Now, if none of this would have happened, if he would have been healthy and like none of these problems off the field happened, would he be my number 1 wide receiver? I suppose it's possible, but maybe I just trust those other two guys a little bit more. But I'm going to stick with my number 5 ranking for the moment. Okay, let's move on to the world of baseball. They're not the Anaheim Angels anymore. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or whatever you call them, have sent designated Matt Harvey for assignment. So the former All-Star, he's been given up on. They're done with him. So it seems like Matt Harvey's career might be over at this point. If you've been hanging on him in the deepest of dynasty leagues, waiting for that comeback, it might be time to cut bait and go with another player with more prospects. All right, another story out of the National League this time. The Philadelphia Phillies have signed left-handed pitcher Smily to a contract here, and they're actually expecting him to pitch tomorrow. So he was terrible for the Rangers this year. He went 1-5 with an 8.42 ERA in 51 innings. So I'm not really sure what the Phillies are thinking. I didn't dig too deep into it. I just know that you should not be starting Smily when you see his name pop up tomorrow for the Phillies. Yeah, I'd probably avoid him. Not who I want to be counting on. All right, so let's get to the fantasy football. We're going to do a 2-round mock draft here. I'm going to use a half-point PPR settings here, a 12-team league. So we're going to go through the first 24 picks. I'm just essentially going to pretend I'm 12 different owners. So my number 1 pick right now is McCaffrey out of Carolina. I think McCaffrey probably has the least amount of question marks going into it of any running back. He's in this top group. He was amazing last year. I expect him to be productive again, and he has no injury concerns. He has no playing time concerns, no off-the-field concerns, nothing. All right, I feel very safe, and that's why I have McCaffrey right now as my number 1. Barkley, I have as my number 2 overall pick here. Now, Saquon, I think he's awesome. He had an amazing rookie season. I think that offense will not be as good. I think the team in general won't be as good. I don't think the defense is going to be good. So how often are they going to be able to run the ball and give him 20 carries a game? I feel like the Giants are always going to be playing from behind, and maybe that hurts Barkley's rushing attempts a little bit. Now, Barkley can obviously catch the ball, and he's a threat out of as a threat as a receiver as well. But I mean, he just say the targets stay the same this year and the rushes go down a little bit. That hurts his value. I mean, I still have him number 2 overall. It's not like I dropped into 10, but there are some question marks because of the team he's on about Barkley. Number 3 is Kamara. I don't have any questions about Kamara either. I think he's super skilled. He's going to have the same role he had last year, maybe even a little bit more with Ingram being out. Maybe he gets a few more touches. But if anything, this team is ready to go. The defense is pretty much the same. The offense is essentially the same. If he puts up the same numbers he did last year, you're super happy, and you're plenty happy to take him at number 3. If you're guaranteed his numbers from last year, you're probably taking him number 1, let's be honest. But I have Kamara number 3 on my list. Number 4, I've dropped Zeke Elliott. He was my number 1 running back. The more and more I've thought about this holdout situation, again, he hasn't threatened the holdout for any regular season games, just for training camp. But even then, I feel like when that happens, you see more injury risk, right? If you sit out all the training camp, the odds of you getting injured in your first game back go up, in my opinion. So I think it adds just a little bit of risk to Elliott's. I also don't think the defense is going to be that good this year in Dallas. So I don't think he's going to get those carries where they're trying to milk a lead and they are up by a touchdown and just hammering him with the ball. Now, he'll still catch the ball. He does a decent job with that. If they're behind, it's not like he's going to be out of the game plan. But I'm worried a little bit about the holdout situation and about the just situation in general in Dallas. I don't think the offensive line is as good as it used to be either. Okay, number 5. I moved this guy up here. I have Johnson out of Arizona. I think that offense has a chance to really be explosive. I considered moving him in front of Elliott, actually, because of his concerns. Now, obviously, the defense is going to stink, but I think Johnson has the opportunity to catch like 90 balls this season. I think he's going to be used a ton. He's got great hands. He's explosive. He's probably their best. Well, he's for sure their best weapon, but I think he's their best receiving target as well. And I think Kyler Murray is going to be throwing him the ball an awful lot out of that backfield. And I think he's going to have an awesome year. I'm considering moving him up to number 5. Okay. Up to number 4. I've already moved him up to number 5. But for right now, we'll take Johnson at number 5. Number 6, I'm done with my running backs here. I think those are the top kind of 5 guys. I've moved Johnson up into that group of elite running backs, and now we're going over to wide receivers. So my number 1 is Devontae Adams out of Green Bay. I mean, you pair him with Rodgers. You got new coaching in town. The offense was not dynamic by any stretch last year, and he was still incredible. Okay, so I'm sticking with Adams. I like him as my number 1. Hopkins is my number 2. I have no question about his talent. I do have some question about the quarterback's ability to stay healthy in Houston. So that offensive line is not very good, but Hopkins can do things that no other wide receiver can do. He's probably the most talented wide receiver in the league, but I don't think his opportunity is that great. But I still have him as my wide receiver 2. Number 8, the 8th pick overall, I have Julio Jones here. I think Julio Jones deserves a spot above the other running backs, Connor, Gordon, Bell, all mixing. I think Jones is a safer bet. He's a guaranteed guy to get like 1,400 yards. Now, can he break through and score, 6, 7, 8 touchdowns this season? I think it's possible. The offensive line is better in Atlanta, and he is absolutely reliable, and there should be no problem with Julio Jones. My number 4 wide receiver comes up here at number 9, Juju Smith-Schuster. I love this guy. I think he's going to lead the league in targets. You might see him post 200 targets this year. I mean, he had, I think, 176 last year, somewhere around there. I think Roethlisberger is just going to pound him the ball to kind of prove that Antonio Brown, wasn't the reason he was successful. And I think Juju is just going to have an amazing year. No question about that. He's got all the talent in the world, and I think he has a great opportunity. Okay, number 10. I mentioned him before. This is where I'm throwing Tyreek Hill. He was the number 1 fantasy wide receiver by far last year. I don't know. There's something holding me back from putting him up any farther than this. So I'm just going to stick with Hill. We've already talked about him enough here at number 10. Number 11. So here's the point where I think this group of wide receivers has separated themselves and this group of running backs have separated themselves. So here I'm going to go ahead and take the clear number 1 tight end, which is Kelsey out of Kansas City. Now, if he puts up the numbers he did last year and you're guaranteed that, I probably have him at number 6 in front of all the wide receivers. I mean, obviously there's touchdown regression possibilities, but this guy is awesome. The Kansas City offense, especially with Hill coming back, should be awesome again. I don't see any reason for him to fall off. And there's no more elite running backs or wide receivers at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger on a tight end here at number 11. Okay, now we're at the turn. So we have the 12th and 13th picks. And here you've got to kind of remember that you're not going to be picking again for what, 23 spots? So you've really got to plan ahead, okay? Because you're not picking again until what? The end of the third round, which would be pick 36. So you're going from pick 13 to pick 36 without taking anyone. So I want to grab, if I'm at the turn, a running back and a wide receiver. Okay. So I'm going to take Connor, who I think is the best running back left on the board. Sure, there's some questions in Pittsburgh that there might be a timeshare, but I think Connor was great last year. I think he'll do it again this year. And then, I think Antonio Brown is the best of the wide receivers left. So I'm going to pair those two together. They got the Pittsburgh connection. I kind of like that just poetically. So I'm going to take Connor at 12, Antonio Brown at 13. All right, and that's my team going forward. I think that gives me a great foundation. I like both of them as their number one respective positions. I got a solid number one wide receiver, a solid number one running back, and I'm ready to go. So that way, when I come up again at the turn, I can have options. I can go to running back and go wide receiver and running back again. I can do whatever I want. So if you were to go to running backs, I think that really leaves you thin going forward. Okay. Pick number 14. So I've got Kelsey on my team, right? So really here, you can take a running back and go with a you can take a wide receiver and go the no running back strategy. It's risky. I kind of like some of the late round running backs, but for me, there's enough wide receivers late where I'm going to go ahead and take a running back here. Now, I am going to stay with a risky running back. I'm taking Melvin Gordon. I think he is one of the best 6 running backs in football. The only question I have here is he going to play or is he going to hold out? Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take the chance on it. This guy's obviously a gambler. He took Kelsey in the first round. We'll give him Gordon in the second round and see what happens, because I think if he does play, I would have him above the top wide receivers. I would have him at number I would either have him 6 in front of the wide receivers or at 11 right behind the wide receivers, somewhere in there, maybe even number 8. But anyway, he would definitely be a top guy for me. So if I see Melvin Gordon fall here to me at number 14, I'm going to go ahead and do that because I needed a running back. Okay, now this guy took Hill. So who are we going to pair with Tyreek Hill? Well, there are some running backs on the board. We've got Bell, Mixon, Chubb, Gurley, Damian Williams, a whole bunch of guys like that. But you know what? I'm not in love with any of those guys. And for me, I think Michael Thomas is one of the best wide receivers in the game. He's reliable every single week. He's going to catch balls. And, he pretty often gets in the end zone. Drew Brees loves throwing in the ball. So I'm going to grab 2 of the best 5, 6 wide receivers in my head. And I'm taking Tyreek Hill and I'm matching up with Mike Thomas. I'm going no running backs in the first round. I'll pick out some running backs late. Okay, next up. We got another Pittsburgh connection here. So the Juju team, they took Smith-Schuster in the first round. They're going with Le'Veon Bell here in the second round. They can't believe Bell fell to them at pick 16. They had him rate him at like number 7. I don't like Bell. I think the Jets are going to stink again, and Bell's not going to be that good. I hope I'm right about that. Anyway, so Bell falls to 16, and they are very happy. They have Juju. They have Bell. They're probably a Steelers fan, and they are very pleased with this team. Okay, next with Julio. They don't like the running backs either. They see Mixon, they see Chubb. They're like, no, I don't want it. I'm going to go with all upside, Julio Jones and Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. has moved to a new team in Cleveland. That offense should be explosive. He thinks he could have 2 of the top 5 wide receivers in all of football on his team, and he's going to go for it. That's what he's going to do. Another no running back here situation. Okay. Next up, we have the team that took Hopkins. So at number 18 here, they're going to go a little bit more traditional and take Mixon. They think that's a good value. His ADP, I think, is around 11 or 12. So normally he's taken right at the turn. So for him to fall here, they think it's a good spot. So they're going to go ahead and take that. Next up, we have Devontae Adams. He's like, no. I love Adams. I love my big wide receivers. He's awesome. I'm taking Evans out of Tampa Bay. That Tampa Bay team is going to be behind every single game. Evans is going to have to catch the ball. Someone's got to score for that team. So I'm taking Evans at pick number 19. So that's another 2 wide receiver team. So far we have 1, 2, 3 teams with no running backs in the first 2 rounds. So I think it's very interesting. I just don't think that running backs after that first initial elite guys, there's so many question marks. People are just me, don't want to take them. Next up, we have Johnson from Arizona. So who are we going to pair Johnson with? Well, let's go traditional running back, and let's throw in Chubb here because Chubb was amazing in his rookie season last year. Again, the Cleveland offense should be better, so Chubb should get more opportunities to score. Now, what happens later in the season when Kareem Hunt is on the team? I think he's suspended 6 games, and then they have the bye week in week 7, so he should be back week 8. What happens then? Well, that is a question mark. But for the first 6 weeks, you should be dominating your lead with Johnson and Chubb. That should be a great 1-2 matchup for your running back position. Okay, number 4. So this team saw Ezekiel Elliott fall to them at number 4. They thought he was the number 1 player. They're doing cartwheels. And they see Todd Gurley, the number 1 player in all of fantasy last year, is still on the board. They say, you know what? Screw it. I'm taking Todd Gurley right here, right now. I'm making my stand. Yes, he might be a little bit injured right now, but that doesn't mean he's going to be injured for the entire season. I'm taking Todd Gurley. Now, set this aside. In my personal rankings, I do not have Todd Gurley this high. I've got him later than this, but for the sake of this argument, someone's going to take Todd Gurley in the first 20 picks, probably. So I took him at 21 here. That's running back 11. Okay. Right now, typically he's going about running back 10. So this is one spot behind where he normally goes. And at this point, let me be the first to say I don't trust Todd Gurley this year. I saw what happened at the end of last year. Todd Gurley was my workhorse in daily fantasy last year. I owned him like every single week. And then at the end of the season, you're just like, what in the world is going on with this guy? And same thing with the playoffs. Seems like he's been hurt. Seems like he had, and he's not ready to play yet. So is there a risk with this guy? Yes. But he probably has the most upside of any player in the NFL, fantasy football, because you can get a guy who finished number 1 last year outside of the top 20. So it seems like a good risk to me. If you've already got Elliott, you're feeling good about life, go ahead and take Gurley here. It's a good combination of risk and I guess Elliott does carry some risk, but I like it. I like the combination. Okay, next up we have Kamara. Kamara's a great running back. You're feeling good. So here you're kind of thinking like, what do I do here? There's 2 running backs. Let's see, how many running backs are left on the board? I have Jones out of Green Bay, who I like, Marlon Mack out of Indianapolis, Damian Williams out of Kansas City, and Dalvin Cook out of the Minnesota. So I like all 4 of these guys. Okay, so let me think here. How many picks do I have before I come back around again in the 3rd round? There's 4 picks left. Is there a chance that all 4 of those picks are going to be running backs in those first 2 rounds? Well, probably not. I would guess that those guys aren't going to want to have 3 running backs because they each took a running back already. Right, so you would have to go running back, both guys at the top of the draft here to not get one of those running backs on the way back. You follow what I'm saying? So odds are you're going to get one of those 4 running backs in the 3rd round on your way back. Okay, so go ahead and take the wide receiver here. We are pairing Kamara. The choice was between Cooper and Thielen. We're taking Thielen. I think he has a little bit more upside. The first 8 weeks of the season, he was the number 1 wide receiver for 7 or 8 weeks. I don't remember offhand, but it was something like that. He had an amazing start. Then he got injured and he fell off a little bit, but he has the upside to be the number 1 wide receiver in all of football. So I love this pairing, Kamara and Thielen. The team that picked second, they took Saquon Barkley. They're going to take Amari Cooper. They are not going to go the running back option. They're going to take the last, what I believe to be kind of in the top group of wide receivers here, and take Amari Cooper. Okay, so now we're at the turn. This is the point where you could take a tight end. You could take Ertz. You could take Kittle out of San Francisco. But I don't think it's the best move here. You've got McCaffrey already. Let's back him up with another running back from that group we talked about. So they could take Jones, Mack, or Cook, but they're going to take Damian Williams and hope that that offense in Kansas City with the Hill news today means that Damian Williams is going to be scoring all the time again this season. So they're going to take Damian Williams with McCaffrey, and they're going to back him up with a wide receiver. And here's why. Okay. After pick 25, they're not going to pick again until pick 48. That is so long from now. At that point, you're looking at wide receiver options because, again, you won't have any wide receivers. You're going to be running back. Like, let's say they took McCaffrey, Damian Williams, and Dalvin Cook. Okay. That's 3 running backs. You need some wide receivers at this point. And once you get to that 4th round, pick 48, you're left with guys like Woods if he falls, Galladay, Godwin, TJ Lockett. So, I mean, those are guys that I'd love to have as my number 2 wide receiver. I don't want them as my number 1. I just don't want that to happen. So I feel like I need to kind of reach a little bit and go ahead and get a wide receiver here. Okay, so your choices are Keenan Allen. You got A.J. Green, Deshaun Diggs. So I'm going to go ahead and take Keenan Allen here. Now, his ADP is in the 30s. I'm taking him at 24. But you know what? For roster construction, I feel like I have to have the wide receiver here. Okay, so that's it. That is the first 2 rounds plus 1 pick of a mock draft of a PPR league, 12-team league. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it kind of makes I hope it gives you a little bit of insight to how some people think when they're picking from each different place in the draft. So tomorrow we'll be back with a full mock draft, or a probably a best ball draft would be my guess, and we'll go through that with you on a mock draft Sunday. Until then, please check out our sponsor, www.mathradio.com, to pick up an online math course for as little as $9.99, mathradio.com. We'd love it if you left us a review or a rating on iTunes or Spotify. And if you're watching the show live or later on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and tell a friend. We'll see you tomorrow.